Will the US financial system collapse in 2026? Everyone's asking, but what if that's the wrong question? What if the real story isn't a dramatic crash, but a slow, silent squeeze that changes everything? Picture this. It's 2026. The stock market is open. Banks are lending. On the surface, the American financial system looks familiar. There's no panic on the streets, no frozen markets, no single, dramatic shockwave like we saw in 2008. And yet, for millions of people, something feels deeply wrong. Everything feels tighter, heavier, even though from a distance, nothing looks broken. This isn't because households suddenly forgot how to manage their money or started making bad decisions. It's because the system itself has changed. It's become less tolerant of error. The safety nets have been quietly pulled in, and the cost of just living a normal life keeps climbing, relentlessly. Let's talk about that cost. Think back to the price hikes of 2024 and 2025. In 2026, those prices don't come crashing down. There's no big reset button. What became expensive stays expensive. Food, insurance, housing, services, those price tags are the new normal. But what really changes is the cost of managing it all. Interest rates, despite all the hopes, don't fall enough to give people real breathing room. That old debt you've been carrying, it feels heavier with each passing month. And those financial cushions, the savings you worked so hard to build, they're thinning out, quietly, month by month, without you even noticing until you really need them. For most people, this doesn't feel like a sudden crisis. It feels like being on a treadmill that's slowly speeding up, with no recovery phase in sight. You're running harder and harder just to stay in the same place. It's not a heart attack, it's chronic exhaustion. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. Government finances. No, the government doesn't go bankrupt in 2026. The system functions, but it tightens. More and more of the country's resources are already spoken for, committed to past obligations like debt, interest, and entitlement programs. That leaves less and less flexibility for new priorities, for the things that actually move society forward. So, the impact doesn't arrive as a shocking headline about massive budget cuts. It arrives as the things that never quite happen. The infrastructure that works, but rarely gets a modern upgrade. The public services that function, but struggle to keep up with new demands. The political debates that drag on for months, maybe years, with very little to show for it in the end. It's not because we're out of good ideas. It's because the room to maneuver, the financial space to turn those ideas into reality, is shrinking. This trickles down directly into your personal finances. If the last couple of years were about adjusting to inflation, 2026 is about precision. We are entering a low-tolerance era for your wallet. In the past, a small financial mistake might have been a minor setback. Now it can be a catastrophe. A single missed payment doesn't just mean a late fee anymore. It triggers a cascade of compounding costs, a hit to your credit score that makes everything else more expensive for years. Delaying a big financial decision, like refinancing a loan or buying a home, could lock you into years of higher expenses that you can never get back. A simple timing error, something that would have been a minor bump in the road a decade ago, can become a structural setback that alters your financial trajectory for good. No spectacular disaster is required for this to happen. All it takes is a system that no longer absorbs friction, a system where the buffers are gone. And what about the great American dream of homeownership? While the housing market in 2026 doesn't implode, it stagnates. Prices remain high, and mortgage rates, while not at their peak, are still high enough to sideline a generation of buyers. Existing homeowners, locked into their low-rate mortgages from years ago, stay put. They can't afford to move. New buyers are left waiting on the sidelines. But the longer they wait, the more disadvantaged they become as prices inch up and their savings struggle to keep pace. The result is subtle, but incredibly powerful. The economy keeps chugging along on paper, but real-world mobility grinds to a halt. People are stuck. Progress feels blocked, not because of some epic failure, but simply because of timing and a lack of access. The ladder of opportunity is still there, but the rungs are spaced much farther apart. This brings us to the dominant emotion of 2026. It isn't fear, it's fatigue. It's a bone-deep, persistent exhaustion. We're not talking about the kind of panic that makes you sell all your stocks. We're talking about the mental drain of constantly being on high alert. People are still working hard. They're still trying to spend and save wisely. They're still making plans for the future. But every single one of those plans now requires so much more. More calculation, running the numbers over and over. More restraint, saying no to small joys to save for essentials. And more contingency planning, constantly worrying about what could go wrong. Because the consequences of something going wrong are so much greater. This isn't about becoming poorer in absolute terms. It's about having less margin for error. It's the difference between walking on a wide, stable path and walking on a tightrope. You might be moving forward, but the focus and energy required are immense, and the risk of falling is always on your mind. So here's the uncomfortable truth of 2026. The US financial system is still operational. It works, but it demands more from every single person living inside it. More discipline, more awareness, more sacrifice. The safety buffers we once took for granted have thinned out. The ability to bounce back from a setback is slower, and the echoes of our mistakes last much, much longer. Nothing collapses overnight. There's no single day you can point to on a calendar. Instead, everything just tightens, gradually, day by day, until you wake up one morning and realize the world feels fundamentally different. A system doesn't need to break to change your life forever. It only needs to stop protecting you from the small mistakes, the minor misfortunes, the everyday friction of life. 2026 won't be remembered as the year things broke. It might be remembered as the year we all realized that just standing still now requires far more effort than moving forward used to. And maybe, the most important question we should be asking isn't when the next big crisis will arrive. The real question is, what kind of pressure are we already learning to live with, quietly, every single day, and how much more can we take? Thanks for watching. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. Stay safe, and stay aware.